Lloyd's of London insures more ships than anyone else on the planet, and they have never once charged extra to sail through the Bermuda Triangle. NOAA has said it plainly: there is no evidence that disappearances happen here more often than anywhere else in the ocean. So if the risk isn't real, why has this legend survived for 70 years? To understand why, we need to look at the water itself and what's actually sitting inside it. There's no official map for what you're about to see. The U.S. Board on Geographic Names doesn't recognize the Bermuda Triangle as a real location. No coordinates, no filed boundary. Size estimates swing wildly from roughly 500,000 square miles to over 1.5 million, depending on who drew the line. But what sits inside that vague shape is very real. The deepest point in the entire Atlantic, the Milwaukee depth, plunges to 8,380 meters, nearly 27,500 feet down. And this water sits inside one of the busiest hurricane corridors on the planet. No two maps of this region even agree on where it starts. But vague boundaries didn't stop two very real losses from happening inside them. The first happened at sea in 1918, and it's still baffling investigators. The USS Cyclops sailed out of Barbados carrying 306 people and a full cargo of manganese ore.
She never arrived. No distress call, no wreckage, no survivors, and no bodies, not one. You'd expect a ship this size to leave some kind of trail behind, even in a storm. Instead, she vanished so completely that the U.S. Navy's own official record calls it one of the most baffling mysteries in the annals of the Navy. Investigators considered mechanical failure, structural collapse, even wartime enemy action. None of it was ever confirmed. Search crews covered enormous stretches of ocean and still found nothing. Not a lifeboat, not an oil slick, not a single piece of debris. A century later, marine archaeologists still don't know exactly where the Cyclops rests or what finally took her down. One disappearance with no evidence at all is unusual enough. What happened 27 years later in the sky above this same stretch of water is where the story gets even harder to explain.
On December the 5th, 1945, 5 Navy Avenger bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale for a routine training flight. It was supposed to last 3 hours. It never ended. The flight leader radioed that his compass and his backup compass were both malfunctioning, and that nothing around him looked familiar. Within hours, all 5 aircraft were gone. Then it got worse. A rescue plane carrying 13 crew launched to search for them, and it disappeared too. You'd expect at least one piece of wreckage to eventually wash up, or one debris field to turn up on sonar. Instead, in 80 years of searching, not a single confirmed piece of any of those 6 aircraft has ever been recovered. The Navy's official inquiry blamed disorientation and navigational error, a reasonable explanation, but one that still leaves the wreckage itself completely unaccounted for. That's the part investigators still can't close the file on, an explanation for why it happened with no physical evidence of where it ended. 2 vanishings, decades apart, both real, both documented, and both still missing their final piece of proof. So how did these 2 cases turn into an entire legend? Here's where the story changes. The term Bermuda Triangle didn't even exist when the Cyclops vanished or when Flight 19 disappeared. It wasn't coined until 1964 when a writer named Vincent Gaddis used it in a magazine article, nearly 2 decades after Flight 19 and 46 years after the Cyclops. That gap means the pattern people talk about was assembled after the fact, case by case. In 1975, a librarian named Larry Couchet did something almost nobody had bothered to do. He went back to the original newspapers, weather reports, and Coast Guard logs for dozens of these famous cases. And what he found changed the story completely. One ship, widely reported as vanishing 3 days out of an Atlantic port, had actually departed from a port with the same name on the Pacific coast on the other side of the world. Another aircraft, long described as lost without a trace over open water, had actually crashed near Daytona Beach in front of hundreds of witnesses. So when you go back and check the actual records, most of the famous unexplained cases simply aren't unexplained at all. That doesn't erase the two real mysteries we just covered. It just means almost everything built up around them was fiction.
So, what actually explains the parts that are real? Let's separate what's confirmed from what's still genuinely open. NOAA has found no evidence that disappearances happen here more often than in any other well-traveled stretch of ocean. Lloyd's of London, the world's largest marine insurer, charges nothing extra to cross this water, and if the risk were real, their pricing would reflect it. There's a genuine documented compass anomaly here too, where a magnetic compass can point toward true north instead of magnetic north. That's not a malfunction, just a known variance. Sailors accounted for it long before satellite navigation existed. But even after all of that gets explained, two specific cases still don't have a physical answer. Nobody has ever recovered wreckage from the Cyclops. Nobody has ever recovered wreckage from Flight 19. Not one confirmed piece in over a century of searching for one and 70 years for the other. So this isn't a story where science explains everything, and it isn't one where nothing can be explained either. It sits right in between, which is exactly the kind of case that's hardest to walk away from. So which explanation comes closest to filling that gap? The strongest is weather and human error combined. This region overlaps one of the busiest hurricane corridors in the Atlantic, and the Gulf Stream can turn calm water violent within hours with almost no warning. Before modern forecasting, that combination alone accounts for a large share of historical losses. The second is the myth itself, a documented pattern of misreporting and after-the-fact storytelling that directly explains most of the unexplained cases, not as a theory, as a checked, confirmed finding. A weaker possibility is rogue waves, massive walls of water that can reach 30 meters, nearly 100 feet, more likely to form where multiple storm systems converge, as they do here. It's plausible, but researchers haven't confirmed it caused any specific loss. And the weakest explanation on this list is methane hydrates, pockets of gas beneath the seafloor that could theoretically reduce water density enough to sink a vessel. It's a real geological phenomenon, but no evidence ties it to any named case here. Even the strongest explanation on this list still can't fully close the file on the Cyclops or Flight 19.
Here's where the evidence actually leaves us. Almost everything the legend claims has a clear, checkable answer. No elevated risk, no insurance anomaly, and a myth built largely after the fact out of cases that don't hold up under scrutiny. But two names still resist a final answer. The USS Cyclops, gone since 1918, 306 people aboard, not one piece of wreckage ever recovered, and Flight 19, gone since 1945, along with the rescue plane sent to find it, 6 aircraft, still nothing confirmed. That's the real reason this story hasn't disappeared after 70 years of debunking. Two genuine, documented cases science still hasn't closed. Every year, better sonar and deeper survey missions push a little further into the dark. One day, the wreckage of the Cyclops or Flight 19 may finally surface. And when it does, this stops being a mystery and becomes a solved case, like almost everything else on this list already has. Until then, the questions stay exactly where the evidence left them, open. If you had to guess right now, what do you think actually happened to Flight 19? Tell us in the comments below.